with particular reference being made to the extent to which social media is revolutionizing communities in general and religious communities in particular. Now, social media, I think for many of us, we're all on it in one way or another, but understand it probably too little, and that's why the opportunity to have literally a panoply of expertise is just wonderful. I'm Sara. I'm from the Free Speech Union of South Africa. I'm one of your moderators, and my co-moderator is?
I'm David Saperstein, and honored to be doing this with Sara.
So what we're going to do is we'll introduce one guest at a time and let them speak for 4 minutes. Right? Sorry, it's been reduced. 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Yeah, and give each one an opportunity to present what it is that is of concern or of great issue to them. So we'll do one speaker at a time, and then David and I will take alternating turns to ask a question of each speaker. Not two of us asking each speaker, but one per speaker spread out. And then I'll open the questions up to the floor and take it from there and hopefully have fun discussion as much as anything.
And our good friends here will hold up time cards, so try to keep an eye on the two of them. We will we'll ask, amongst other things later, probe deeper about best practices and about where we go from here. Feel free, if you want to address that within your 5 minutes, feel free. But no, we're going to come back to all of you on those questions afterwards as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce, and it's pronounced Andre Oboler. Oboler. Andre Oboler, who is the CEO and the founder of Online Hate Prevention Institute, amongst a number of other positions that he holds. He is an expert on the harm that online hate and extremism causes, and has done some very deep studies, particularly in terms of anti-Semitism in Australia, where he is located. And Andre, it's a pleasure to have you start us off.
Okay, thank you for having me. I will start just by saying that the Online Hate Prevention Institute was founded to tackle all forms of online hate. I'd been doing work on anti-Semitism beforehand I'll get it when I get to my written notes, but I've been working for about 20 years in the space. And at some point we said the work on anti-Semitism is so many miles ahead of what's happening in any other type of hate. We must take the lessons we've learned from that and apply them to all the other problems. So that was really the founding of the organisation. So as I mentioned, I've been tackling online hate for over 20 years. On social media, I've been tackling it for 18 years. Now, I'll let you pause and think what social media looked like 18 years ago. That was a time when Facebook was fairly new. It was growing rapidly. It was trying to catch up to MySpace. Since the start of social media, it's really had a flawed business model. People's personal data and their attention is the commodity in social media. Social media users are a product, not a customer. It is increasingly hard to get content seen on social media unless you become an actual customer. That is, you pay to promote your content. There are two exceptions to this. Firstly, content which farms outrage, other forms of extremism, and usually negative emotions. That content will spread without being paid for. The other exception is people who are actively engaged with your content may see more of it. So if you have a faith community and you have a page, your own community may regularly go and look at it and they will see it popping up in their stories, but that's not going to help you grow. In the remainder of my remarks, I want to focus on the content that is spreading virally because it generates anger, outrage, and hate. It is a form of pollution of the social media industry. Like pollution from other industries, those that profit from it really should be the ones responsible for cleaning it up and paying for that. Europe has led the way in this space The Digital Services Act, which is fairly new, is the latest effort to reform the industry. Some countries, including my own in Australia, have passed laws now limiting social media to people above age 16. For a time, countries were working to make social media safer. Trust and safety teams were growing. Investment was occurring into AI moderation. Since COVID, we've seen a significant pullback on this, and we've seen that pullback accelerating. It's harder than ever to get action taken on even very clearly and obviously harmful content. Religious communities are increasingly targets of online hate. It's being normalised online, and that's leading to real-world violence. We've had 2 synagogues in my city that have been firebombed, one last year, one a few months ago. Old propaganda is recirculating. This is particularly true of anti-Semitism, but also in our work on Islamophobia. What's most concerning is that people are in echo chambers where the hate is normalised. People who used to be involved in interfaith activities and build bridges are now on the front lines of moral outrage, posting content that is so extreme, those they used to work with simply can't engage with them. A dialogue to recover is very hard when hurtful content continues to be posted. Much of that hurtful content is hate propaganda. Often it's people resharing things that others have posted without reflecting on what they're resharing. When the nature of the content is pointed out, people get defensive, and their echo chambers reassure them that everything's okay. We're building a society of isolated and heavily defended communities, a return in many ways to the Dark Ages, where at least some of the hate originates. I am not going to get through the rest of this in the time we've got left. So we've seen a surge in content attacking Jews for killing Jesus. We've seen dehumanization of Muslims dramatically increase. We've seen attacks firebombing places of worship. After those attacks, we see social media comments calling them false flags, targeting the impacted community, saying they were responsible for the attacks, denying it even occurred. Faith communities are not unique for being targeted. We see the same occurring for other communities. Women's groups, minority ethnic communities, racism is rife. When it comes to faith communities, however, there is a long history of disinformation and conflict-based information to draw on through history that's now being recirculated and republished online. I spoke on disinformation in 2023 to a technology audience, and the entire talk was focused on blood libels and their re-emergence online. Historic church art and sculptures depicting allegations of blood libel have been incorporated into YouTube videos and presented as evidence that the blood libels are real. We are dealing not just with failings of new technology, but also with the revival of historic lies designed to spread hate and justify religious persecution. Thank you.
I think probably the most interesting follow-on is to invite Lynn Swain to speak. She's a neuroscience of leadership specialist, so now we're going into the neuroscience of essentially what Andre has raised, and the CEO of Symbiote Leadership Institute. Lynn, could I ask you, please, just to give us a little idea of what your institute does, and then your view on social media.
Right. So I'm accustomed to speaking to corporates and helping to develop leadership there, but with the brain in mind. So there is such a wonderful upsurge in terms of people wanting to know how they for sure can see results, and because of that, they're starting to invest their energy a lot more. So it's very unusual, except for my very recent fellowship opportunity as part of Angela Redding's Faith and Media Initiative. Outside of that, I would say this is a very, very new experience, taking this lens to faith and media here. So thank you very much for having me. What I'd like to perhaps start with, unless you wanted to add something more to that, is just for us to kind of just limber up a bit. I want to ask you to be nice and honest with me. We have quite a diverse audience, and I want to ask you, when I mention the word doom, what comes up for you? Okay, a sort of insecticide, right? That's the South African speaking. What else comes up? Come on, be honest, South Africans.
A very old computer game.
Really? Okay. All right. Who's going to own up to the A? Oh, the DA. DA, I think. I was waiting for someone to mention the pastor, who I think is still reflecting on his yes, where you might not know about this, but he was spraying his congregation with doom insecticide. So I think he's been put away. But can you see how, one word like that, and how very, very differently we've all kind of drawn on our memories for that. It means something else to every single one of us here. And that is all beneath logic. That is all drawn from our non-conscious brain. And in fact, first filtered through our emotional system and our amygdala. So you're not going to hear that much biology today, but really the amygdala is the part of our brain that needs to react to anything that might threaten our survival. And one thing that brings us all together here, across all of our diversity, is the fact that we respond. There are actually five things. The one would be a sense of security, a sense of certainty. We all need that, or we are on edge, and our amygdala it activates that threat, fight and flight response. And then we have acceptance. We want to feel like we belong, fairness, and empowerment, and then recognition. So in the case of those who didn't quite want to mention the pastor in South Africa, it might just have been that you didn't want to be seen aligned with that sort of behavior, right? It's like, I hope they don't think, the international guests, that I am part of that. So it's them and us. And that's a typical response when we're feeling threatened. And so social media brings that up very, very easily for us, especially when we're tired. So yes, even in this environment, faith-filled people, doom scrolling, and perhaps not as regulated as you need to be, simply because you don't have the oxygen and glucose at that time of the night, that part of the day, or it's just an emotional upset that you're dealing with and you're coming in and having to regulate. It's really very easy to fall into that trap. And it's not you, it's just your brain for now. So where I want to go with this is just to say that, we are all vulnerable to this. It's human to be vulnerable to this sort of behavior simply because we have reinforced over all of our years typical behavior. And until we become aware of it, and this is one of the issues I think that I would love to be involved in addressing, until we're aware of it, until we're empowered and educated on that, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to turn this kind of behavior around. And so we will fall into perpetuating a lot of the outrage, a lot of the division. But we're looking here toward Ubuntu. And what I loved about this theme is that Ubuntu is not just an African ideal. It really is. 1 minute left, my gosh. So Ubuntu is a neurological truth. Because we are. We shape each other's brains. We shape each other's neurochemistry. We have an effect. When I decide to trust someone, like you, for example, in the front row, I can trust you for possibly the fact that you, like me, are here because you're wanting to really put everything into an Ubuntu-based future, right, within this faith community. And as I do that, not only is oxytocin, the trust hormone, spiking in my bloodstream, but it is strangely in yours, whether you know it or not. So you're going to go away from here filled with an inclination, a predisposition to trusting someone else or discerning who you can trust, which then means you're going to be trusting more because you won't be going into a typical threat state. And this is contagious and it's reciprocal. And so I think my challenge to you all is, as we leave a discussion today, where we're talking about outrage, negative emotions going viral and its impact on people? How about we think about spreading oxytocin through deciding to be compassionate, helping to trust first for a little something, and opening up conversation across not only these kinds of environments and platforms, but out there with our people, with our communities, countries, and hopefully globally.
I hope the other translators hear a little bit more about what the mechanisms moving from one negative set of responses and those functions we're bringing to the positive ones and other changes that take place. It's my pleasure to introduce Rosalind Packett.
I thought I was going last. Oh, okay.
Would it be helpful to you to go last? For
I-
us, we wanted to move into Africa a little bit, so
Okay.
does that make sense to how you set that
Yes.
up?
I mean,
Then,
yeah.
so let me introduce Rosalind. Rosalind has been a professor of teaching religion at the University of Tennessee for many years, coming on 4 years now, I believe, and has a specialty in religion in Africa, here dealing with the relationship of art and religion, of gender, media, religion in relation to human rights, so crossing over into a lot of the things that we're engaged in at this gathering. So Rosalind?
Thank you very much, David. There's a slight correction there. I didn't teach religion, I taught about religion, right? There's a slight difference. Okay. In slight contrast to Andre, if I haven't met Andre, but hi. I'm decided to focus on some of the initiatives and resources that religious communities are coming up with to combat, something a little bit more positive. And also, I'm going to really, even though I'm semi-retired, fly the flag for the importance of qualitative research in the rise and the complexity of social media, particularly in relation to religion. Now, as David's hinted at, I'm a long-standing historian and anthropologist of religion, and the areas that I've done a lot of research in: religious diversity, pluralism, religious minorities, religiously related conflict, gender issues, and they're all bubbling up again in this new context. Okay, so like similar dynamics, whether it's power, authority, agency, identity, representation, communication, experience. So now, and let's not forget the history here. There was resistance to the dissemination of printed Bibles, right? In the mid-15th century, they were viewed as a potential challenge. So Islam itself didn't embrace the printing of the Quran until the 18th century. So kind of initial negative, we're afraid of this new phenomenon. But I decided to see, I went looking for religious organizations and researchers who were developing initiatives and online resources regarding safe and healthy use of social media to combat disinformation and harassment. I came across an excellent, I wish I'd been able to put this up, but time is short. It's called the Interfaith Network for the United Kingdom. It's got excellent guidelines and tips about, for religious organizations to use and what to watch out for. And then the Church of England, my own religious affiliation, has wasted no time getting out at the starting gate on this, and they have great online resources. And if you don't like what's out there, they're also going to help you find additional social media platforms for your churches. Now, but I particularly want to highlight the whole issue of emergent research on this topic, because that, if we consider some of this research, it is enlightening, and it is also helping analyze a lot of what we need to know about. So I highly recommend the Bridge Initiative at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. They have an excellent website and research project that does research and develops educational materials on Islamophobia in social media. They've got a whole team on that. There's also some really cutting edge and very recent, most of this is dated 2023, 2024, 2025. Article, I found an excellent article on social media platforms in managing polarization, echo chambers, and misinformation risk and interreligious dialogue among young generations. I must also strongly recommend the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice at the University of the Western Cape here in Cape Town, spearheaded by Professor Lee Sharnik Udemans. They are doing excellent work on research on Muslim influences in visual social media. And one of them I was talking to yesterday, she said the importance of not just number crunching in terms of the impact of social media, but a qualitative research approach to understand how online communities regulate and manage disagreements and conflict. There's also lots of great research on Pentecostal charismatic churches I'll get there, in West Africa, particularly Nigeria and Ghana. They are ahead of the curve in terms of offering their communities a full spectrum of social media opportunities, which I think is also a marketing ploy to stop their members going off looking elsewhere. It keeps them in-house. But that's a great area to research. So I'm going to stop there. I've got an excellent case study about harassment of a major Muslim influencer in Nigeria and how she has worked her way around that. But I'll save that for later. Thank you.
Right. Sorry, in case you hadn't noticed, we're not necessarily going in order. Seating people was a challenge in and of itself. So we're not necessarily going in the order of seating. We've got a plan. Could I go to Yushika at the end? Yushika Singh, who's the manager, religion department for the South African Broadcasting Corporation TV division. And I know from her bio, which I recommend, as with all the others that you pick up on the Interfaith website, that she's won awards for some of the work she's produced. So, Yushika, the floor is yours as to what the issues are that
Thank you very much.
concerning you.
So I'm actually honored to be in the company of such amazing people, and really people who have researched the space of media in our country and of course abroad. Being in public service, for me, it's more of a calling because I would have had the opportunity to work in a commercial broadcaster, but I declined that some time ago. But I think the critical thing for media, whether it's social media or whether it's traditional media, and particularly in South Africa, public service is a huge responsibility, and it's a big and it's an important duty, not just for the government of the country or the ruling party, but it's for the citizens. And I think since democracy, South Africa had the opportunity to start questioning what is the state of news in the country, what is the state of communities in the country. And for me, being in the SABC is a very it's actually a historical step because we were not allowed to be in the public broadcaster up until democracy, and particularly in positions of influence. And I remember, and I love telling stories, so when I first started in 1996, I walked into a room full of pastors who were of a particular race and a particular philosophy, and then said, well, we cannot work with heathens. So either you choose to stay or you have to go. And that was the first introduction of being in the public broadcaster. And until we had to work with some of our reverends who were brought to manage change and manage people of different colors and religions, you know, slowly the conscientization started happening. And I think because our country was thrown into a space of change very, very quickly, you know, we had the founding fathers of our democracy and mothers, and a lot of the stories are not always told. But I think the critical thing, the service of what public broadcasting is about, it's to engineer the space of interfaith dialogue, is to bring people of different voices together, and is to celebrate who we are as a very diverse country. And I think the space of celebration is often forgotten. It's mixed up with terminologies and entertainment, that you've got to have entertaining television, as if religion isn't. I mean, what a beautiful morning we had today. So I feel that public service television, it's important because it's a space for cultural preservation. It builds communities, and it creates massive social impact on change. But more than that, it allows the opportunity of spiritual guidance, and it gives all religions the opportunity to share their faith on public television, which was never allowed before because we come from a very strong Christocentric past. And a Christocentrism that was defined by certain people in a particular way, and which engendered racism as well. And I think with the changes in our country, and particularly with the black churches in the country, they saw that it cannot be the case when the religion is misused for other agendas, and particularly propaganda. So we grew up in a country of very, very, we come from very difficult circumstances, very diverse perceptions. And the changes in the last 30 years, I've been in the SABC for 28 of that, but it's been incredible because we've seen wonderful opportunities of engagement. The difficulty we face today in the public space is that we fight another battle, and that is not with religions. Religions actually support each other, and we have the most amazing engagements from all the religions in the country. The difficulty that we fight is secularism and commercialism, because the commercial agenda of religion is quite high. Now, we know in the country with the playing fields, you'll have certain religious groups that might be well attuned and well off, and they're able to afford their own television stations, etc. But that doesn't speak for the majority of the country's religions and indigenous traditions. So part of the journey of the SABC is to ensure that the indigenous knowledge systems are preserved. Our languages are also preserved. And you know, we have 11 official languages, but we also have heritage languages that are not taken into account, like Hebrew, Yiddish, Arabic, Hindi, Sanskrit. These are the languages that govern religious experience in the country. And unfortunately, and I'm going to say it openly, when I have to report on how much of languages are being used, I have to put 100% English for heritage languages, because the reports, whoever devised the reports in ICASA didn't understand that there were other languages outside the 11 official languages. So that's prejudice in itself. And when you prejudice a person's language, you prejudice their entire being. Because as much as we want to perpetuate, you know, cohesion and coming together, we unfortunately have to speak in English in this gathering. We should be speaking isiZulu perhaps, or one of the languages. But this is the indoctrination that has come from centuries of apartheid and centuries of colonialism that has impacted the core of our people, but more importantly, the poorest of the poor in the country.
And so what has been good in some senses is that those who are in power, and particularly in the political space, but also in the religious space, understood that and started creating opportunities for change. But the difficulty is, and as we know, we face other corruption issues in the country, not much of that finance has come into the public service. So we then get thrown into a space. Yashika, your religious programs is not making money, so we can't have you there. We rather put a drama because drama makes money, and that's the fight we have. So it's a give and take, it's a tension, and we are saying that to the public. The public service is your space. You own it as a citizen of the country or anywhere in the world. You have to claim ownership. Otherwise, you're going to be trumped out of existence, if I can use that word. And I think it's if we don't take ownership of it as people of faith coming together, and I think these are some of the things we want to share, is how we can utilize advocacy as a space of engagement and reflect our stories in the country. All our communities, many of them are migrants to South Africa. They've come from different histories, sad histories of slavery and indenture, and those stories we've captured, but not to the extent that we want to. And I believe it's a space of continued engagement. And the other thing around social media, I believe, can be used for good if we understand convergence media. Thank you.
How's that? I'm turning now to Lisa Pretorius, who is a lawyer, is focused on human rights, on religious freedom, serving now as the head of legal for freedom of religion South Africa. Here, obviously, there are tensions sometimes between freedom of speech and freedom of religion. You're grappling with that in South Africa. It was some of the hate speech legislation. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. So yes, we work in the law and policy space, and we're a legal advocacy organization. And as a lawyer, we focus on rights and freedoms because we want good laws and policies that protect religious freedom. As an organization, we are faith neutral. We are politically neutral. So we protect the broad right to religious freedom, which includes, under South African law, the right not to believe. So it's really a broad right, and religious freedom is a basket of rights. It's intertwined with your human dignity, because many people, what they believe or their faith, it informs their identity, and being able to live that out, if they cannot live that out, it really impairs them, it prejudices them. The same that was commented, if you can't speak your language, it takes away from you. And under the Constitution, freedom of religion is also an equality right, because if you're not treated equally because of your religion, obviously that's discrimination, and in many cases unfair discrimination as well. I mentioned that as a lawyer because under South African law we have a distinction between fair and unfair discrimination. Can't help myself. And it's linked also obviously with freedom of expression. You have religious expression. People sometimes talk about freedom of speech, but expression is much broader. It's singing, it's dancing, it's living it out, it's practices, it's observances. And so in our space and the communities that we work with, they have raised a concern that basically comes down to how do you balance, and this is what I'm interested in, how do you balance freedom of expression with lawful limitations of expression? Obviously, as a constitutional lawyer, what you're looking at is the maximum enjoyment of most rights by most people, and sometimes rights can be limited. In our constitution, any right can be limited, but there are certain conditions for that limitation to make sure that it's fair and it's reasonable, etc., etc. Because we live in a constitutional democracy here, and we want to recognize and respect and celebrate the human dignity and equality of all persons. So with some of the faith communities that we work with, have voiced concerns about their ability to express their views on things that have become very contentious topics, marriage and gender and relationships and family, etc., etc. And it's how do you balance that? Because nobody's condoning hate speech. Nobody's condoning hate speech. But what we are concerned about is when a hate speech law, for example, is written very broadly and it captures in its net speech that is actually lawfully protected speech. For example, in our constitutional law, the right to freedom of expression is very broad. So even speech that a particular person might find offensive or it's unpopular with them, it makes them a bit uncomfortable, it's still protected speech. It's important for public debate. And me defending somebody's right and say, this person has an opinion, I don't agree with their opinion, but I defend their right to hold that opinion. I don't not only protect their right, but I protect my right to freedom of expression, and I protect constitutional democracy in that way. Obviously, there are safeguards. We don't allow true hate speech. We're not allowing propaganda from war, incitement of violence. We have these limitations in our law and international law as well. But it's where do you find that balance? Our constitution celebrates unity and diversity, not unity and conformity. And I think when we're talking about social media, and I've seen on social media, the outrage and all this polarization and divisiveness. And I think as conversation, what is necessary is, you have the legal balance, and that's where the lawyers get in, and it's very technical sometimes. But can we have conversations? Can we have maturity in a conversation? And this is where the faith community with a moral compass is important, where we can have different opinions about things and live out our faith without undermining the human dignity of somebody else, with recognizing their inherent worth and celebrating that we have different ideas and different views, and that's not necessarily a threat for you when somebody has a different view. We can still love each other, recognize the dignity and the incredible worth, and learn from each other. So that's more perhaps to the moral side of it, but laws should capture. Some people say you can't legislate morality, and some people say you can. There's a debate, but a law is a moral guidepost about what kind of society do we want. And it's very important for me, and as a lawyer, where's that balance? That's a question we're interested in. And also with the faith communities, because you don't want people within faith communities going after each other, or across faith communities, at different communities, or between people who perhaps have no faith. So I think it's a challenge, but it's also an incredible opportunity. But how can we mature and find each other? Because we don't want to silence people. We want to keep people talking, create a safe space. So because then we'll find each other, and then we'll have true unity, a true peace, not some sort of false peace, but a true peace where we can find each other despite differences.
Thanks. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, if that's a word, Sibu Shimanovska, who is the social media officer for the G20 Interfaith program. She's an activist and started her own travel company, as I gather, largely as a result of interacting with social media. So, Sibu, you're very involved in content creation as a consequence. Your view on things. I suspect there may be a positive spin in all this.
Well, that's a way to put it. So basically, I'm a micro content creator, and this was not something that I particularly planned on. My background is in economics and human rights, but if there are two things that I've always been extremely passionate about, it's travel and human rights. And so I've been, typical question that I get asked, I'm originally from Costa Rica, but I've been literally traveling full-time for the last 5 years. I live out of 2 bags, and which is extremely unusual. I understand that. And I don't pay rent anywhere, so that is my life. And these are stories, right? And so I'm traveling the world, and I'm going to many off the beaten path destinations. I'm in Venezuela, Sierra Leone, Iraq, and I'm coming across so many different stories, and I am breaking so many different stereotypes that I have built up in my head about what the world was like. And I was like, wow, I want to share these stories. And so, of course, social media is a platform that we use to share our own stories. Maybe we share pictures and videos with friends and family. So what started as what I like to call a little travel diary, travel journal, eventually started growing into what is now, like I said, I'm a micro content creator now. And so I reach thousands of people through my stories. And I think it's interesting because, yes, I'm also on the negative side of things. I receive death threats. I cannot post in real time. That is impossible for me to do. It's quite scary. I have to take time off of social media sometimes because of how toxic it can be and the amount of comments that can be coming in, especially if the algorithm pushes the video to the wrong audience, right? But I have also seen the positive side of things. For me to be getting messages from random strangers telling me, thank you for showing me this, thank you for breaking stereotypes, thank you for explaining what things are like in this country. And realistically speaking, these are things that and places that people will most probably never get a chance to visit. And so when I share content, we were talking about Ubuntu. I share content through humanitarian lens. I do it through compassion. Why? Because I feel like there's so many different stories out there that need to be told. And I know that we have a certain perspective, for example, that TikTok is a dancing video. I mean, it can be if you want it to be, but the reality is that for me at least, it's more than just going in front of the camera and standing and taking pretty pictures with me in a dress. Like, again, no, I'm not trying to diss those people, but that's not me. Like, if I'm gonna be out there, I want to be sharing my stories and the stories of the people that I encounter. And of course, I mix geopolitics and human rights into this as well. So it's creating content from a very, very different perspective that I guess many of you are not used to. And I know it's not a very generic way of creating content, but I love it. And I know that the people that I have been able to reach and the comments that I get on a regular basis about how much people have learned and the different stereotypes that I have been able to break has been fascinating. Now, this is also interesting. Many years ago, I actually worked on the back end of things. So I actually worked as a content analyst for Facebook, now Meta, and Google as well. So I have seen the legislations, I have seen the policies, I have seen how toxic it can truly be and how much work there is to be done, not just from our perspective as viewers and as consumers, but also from these huge massive corporations that are pushing algorithm, the bots, etc. So it is a scary time to be in. We are here at an interfaith forum, and I have also experienced and seen firsthand the negative comments, stereotypes, and different things that have been shared about specific groups of people. That is scary. I'm not saying it isn't. However, there can be a positive side to social media. It is a tool that is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And just like all of you have smartphones, and maybe I remember when smartphones first came out, when people first started using them 20 plus years ago, people were scared of them, right? And now probably more than 95% in this room, I would probably bet an arm and a leg that most of you have smartphones. And so social media is here to stay. And the thing is, how can we deal with it? And now with the introduction of AI, how can we actually work towards it? Because we can use it. It can be used as a positive tool. Will it ever be perfect? Definitely not. Nothing is perfect after all. But can it be positive? Yes. Can it create change? Yes. And I have seen that firsthand. And not only that, it was mentioned before, not only am I a micro content creator, but I have seen creative friendships had so many different work, professional opportunities, personal opportunities as well. And last but not least, like I mentioned before, because of social media and all of the different things that I was encountering, I ended up actually co-founding a travel company dedicated to sustainable and responsible travel. And all of this was through the power of social media. So that is, all in all, my personal experience. I know that it is not a perfect experience, but this is how things are from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Sibu. What we're going to do is we'll ask a question directed at one of the speakers, but any of the other speakers can, if they feel they need to contribute something, are more than welcome. Perhaps
but you don't
have to. You don't have to. Yeah.
You want to get as many questions in as
Perhaps I can start with you, Sibu. I just wondered, given the sort of what I call the short form social media, the X and the TikTok, and given the fact that you're talking about people telling their stories, and since religion, the communication of religion is the ultimate source of storytelling, have you is there any indication that the younger generation is actually looking for longer form content? Yeah, things like podcasts and debates and that sort of thing.
Unfortunately, no. I feel like the attention span is becoming shorter every day as we speak. The reality is that you need 3 seconds to hook someone. That is how long it takes for someone to just scroll through your video. So you need, and this is the difference. I personally don't use clickbaity titles. I have seen, and this is an example that I use. We are here in South Africa, in Southern Africa, and the amount of content that I see from the African continent as a whole, it's usually really derogatory. And that's what, and you know, people see that and it goes viral, and I think that's absolutely horrible because it ends up dehumanizing people. Instead of using a clickbaity title, you can simply use a hook and one that is actually used in a more positive way. But the reality is that are there people out there consuming long form content? 100%, and their podcasts and everything as well. But I would say that yes, the newer generations are aiming more towards short form, short form content. And yeah, 3 seconds. That's the key. You have 3 seconds to get someone's attention, basically.
So we've seen some extraordinarily positive uses of social media in mobilizing. I'm going to say it's to any of you who want to jump in on this. We've seen some extraordinary uses of social media to achieve positive things in terms of public discourse. The ability to organize protests that have actually taken down autocratic governments, from Tahrir Square to Bangladesh and some of the revolutions in Eastern Europe, etc. We've seen it do some terrible things. From radio in Rwanda to Facebook in Myanmar, here, the enormous expansion of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism that is happening here. So how should a faith community that's subject to false claims, to disinformation and misinformation, to stereotypes and historical distortions, respond to their own communities when this happens and respond to the public? And do interfaith groupings have a special role in addressing such incidents? So you want to take a crack, Andre?
You're giving me the easy ones. Look, we start with the data, and we have both qualitative and quantitative data. We start normally by gathering a large sample, and we do it manually. We don't use AI. One of the problems with using AI or algorithms to find the hate is they have a very blinkered lens. They'll find the stuff you know to ask about, but that may not be the lived experience of the people that are seeing the hate. So we use humans to gather the examples, train staff. We get a sample. We've just finished one over the last month. It's about 1,200 items of anti-Semitism that we gathered in a month. And we have 27 categories of anti-Semitism. So we look at the specific narratives, and then we're able to put out both rebuttals to particular narratives that are particularly popular on certain platforms, and it actually varies by platform what narrative is spreading. We're able to talk to the platforms. I last spoke to Meta right before coming into a session this morning. We're dealing with a women's rights group that is being horrendously attacked at the moment. Death threats, rape threats, doxing threats to get people to see their home addresses, a campaign of false reporting, flagging their personal accounts. 5 of the accounts are currently suspended wrongly. So, we're working with, often with faith communities and other civil society groups, acting as a bridge to the platforms to try and actually correct things, because the system